Close your eyes for a moment. Do you hear that demb rhythm? That voice singing in Swahili? It is Africa speaking through its music, dances, and colors. Pan-Africanism, far more than a political doctrine, is a cultural and artistic movement that unites African peoples and their diasporas. It draws its roots from ancestral traditions, tales passed down from generation to generation, masks carved from wood, fabrics with symbolic patterns, and cuisine rich in flavors. This course invites you to explore how African culture has traveled, transformed, and resisted slavery and colonization. We will discover artists, singers, dancers, and writers who have celebrated Africanity and claimed pride in being black. Through concrete examples, we will see how music, dance, tales, masks, fabrics, and cuisine have become tools of resistance and liberation. Cultural Pan-Africanism is not limited to a simple affirmation of identity, it is a celebration of the diversity and unity of the African continent. It reminds us that Africa is not a country, but a cradle of civilizations, languages, and traditions that have enriched the entire world. This cultural journey will take us from the rhythms of the dem to the songs of slaves in American plantations, through Pan-African festivals that bring together artists from across the continent. We will see how African culture has influenced jazz, blues, reggae, hip-hop, and many other musical genres. We will explore traditional dances that tell stories, tales that transmit wisdom, masks that embody spirits, and fabrics that express identity. Finally, we will reflect on the importance of culture in building a united and prosperous Pan-African future. This course is an invitation to feel, to vibrate, and to celebrate the African soul. SEP First Part, the Cultural Foundations of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was born from the awareness of a common identity, forged by the history of slavery and colonization. But this identity was not built solely in pain, it was nourished by a rich and diverse culture. The early Pan-African thinkers, such as W.E.B. Du Bois or Marcus Garvey, understood that political liberation required a cultural renaissance. They encouraged Africans and people of African descent to reclaim their history, languages, and traditions. African culture, with its rhythms, dances, and tales, became a symbol of resistance and pride. For example, the dembe, a percussion instrument from West Africa, is not just a musical instrument, it is a means of communication, a vector of emotions, and a link between generations.
African tales, transmitted orally, have been collected and published by writers like Leopold Sédar Senghor or Bourogo Diop, thus preserving a precious intangible heritage. Masks, for their part, are not mere decorative objects, they are works of art charged with spiritual and social meanings. They represent ancestors, nature spirits, or deities, and are used in ceremonies and rituals. African fabrics, such as kente or bogolan, are also bearers of symbols. Each pattern, each color tells a story, expresses a social status, or an ethnic belonging. Finally, African cuisine, with its spices, sauces, and cooking techniques, has influenced cuisines worldwide, from Louisiana gumbo to Caribbean curry. All these cultural elements are the pillars of cultural Pan-Africanism, which asserts that Africa has an essential contribution to make to humanity. In this first part, we will explore these foundations in detail, drawing on specific examples from history and current events. We will see how African culture has resisted oppression and how it continues to inspire new generations. SAP's second part, music and dance as vectors of Pan-African unity. Music and dance are undoubtedly the most powerful cultural expressions of Pan-Africanism. They transcend borders, languages, and ethnicities, and create a sense of common belonging. Take the example of reggae, born in Jamaica, but with deep African roots. Its syncopated rhythms, engaged lyrics, and message of resistance and unity have made it a symbol of Pan-Africanism. Artists like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, or Burning Spear have sung of Africa as a motherland, calling for the unity of black peoples and the fight against oppression. Their songs, such as Africa Unite or Get Up, Stand Up, have become anthems for the Pan-African movement. Similarly, hip-hop, born in American ghettos, was inspired by African oral traditions, like the griot or storyteller. African rappers, like Senegalese Didier Awadi or Kenyan Muthoni Drummer Queen, use hip-hop to talk about politics, identity, and African pride. They often blend traditional rhythms with modern beats, creating a unique sound that resonates across the continent. Dance, for its part, is a universal language. Traditional African dances, such as the Maasai Adumu or the South African miners' gumboot, tell stories of hunting, war, work, or celebration. They are often accompanied by songs and percussion, creating an immersive experience that unites participants and spectators. Today, festivals like the Pan-African Festi,
like Fela Kuti in Nigeria, Salif Keita in Mali, or Miriam Makeba in South Africa have carried the colors of Africa on the international stage, introducing the world to the richness and diversity of African music. Their legacy continues to inspire musicians worldwide, proving that African culture is an inexhaustible source of creativity and inspiration. Third part, Tales, Masks, and Fabrics, a Living Heritage. African tales are treasures of wisdom and teaching. Transmitted orally from generation to generation, they convey moral values, life lessons, and knowledge about nature and society. Characters like Anansi the spider, the hare, or the lion are emblematic figures of African oral literature. These tales have been collected and published by writers like Bouregeau Diop, who wrote Les Contes d'Amadou Koumba, or Leopold Sédar Senghor, who integrated elements of oral tradition into his poetry. African tales are not just stories for children, they are also tools of resistance and transmission of history. During slavery, tales were a means of preserving African memory and transmitting coded messages to future generations. African masks, for their part, are works of art that embody the spirits of ancestors, deities, or forces of nature. They are used in religious ceremonies, rites of passage, or festivals. Each mask has a particular meaning, linked to the culture and beliefs of the community that created it. Masks are often carved from wood, but also from ivory, metal, or fabric. They are painted with symbolic colors, red for life, white for death, black for wisdom. African masks have influenced modern artists like Pablo Picasso, who drew inspiration from their geometric forms to create cubism. African fabrics, such as Ghanaian kente, Malian bogolan, or East African kitenge, are also bearers of symbols. Kente, for example, is a hand-woven fabric, composed of strips of silk or cotton in different colors. Each pattern has a meaning. The Adwaniza pattern symbolizes creativity, the Sankofa pattern reminds us of the importance of remembering the past. Bogolan, or mud cloth, is dyed with fermented mud, creating geometric patterns that tell stories or express proverbs. These fabrics are worn during important ceremonies, such as weddings or funerals, and are a sign of
peculiarly through the slave trade and colonization. For example, gumbo, the emblematic dish of Louisiana, is a direct legacy of African cuisine. It is prepared with okra, a vegetable native to Africa, and various meats and spices. Similarly, jollof rice, a popular dish in West Africa, has been adapted in the Caribbean and South America. African spices, such as chili, ginger, turmeric, or cardamom, are used in many cuisines around the world. African cuisine is also a cuisine of sharing and conviviality. Meals are often taken communally, around a single dish, like fufu, cassava or yam pasta accompanied by a sauce. Cooking techniques, such as braising, frying, or stewing, are passed down from mother to daughter. Today, African chefs like Pierre Thiam or Silasi Atadika highlight African cuisine in their restaurants, using local ingredients and traditional techniques to create innovative dishes. African cuisine is also a vector of connection with the diaspora. During Pan-African festivals, cooking workshops are organized to learn how to prepare traditional dishes. These workshops are an opportunity to share recipes, stories, and memories, and to strengthen ties between Africans on the continent and those in the diaspora. African cuisine is therefore much more than simple food. It is a means of reconnecting with one's roots, celebrating one's identity, and building a united Pan-African community. Deepening the role of artists and intellectuals in the African cultural renaissance. Cultural Pan-Africanism would not be what it is without the work of artists and intellectuals who have contributed to the African cultural renaissance. Figures like Leopold Sédar Senghor, Aimé Césaire, or Frantz Fanon theorized the concept of negritude, which affirms the value and beauty of black culture in the face of racism and colonization. Senghor, poet and first president of Senegal, wrote poems that celebrate Africa, its landscapes, traditions, and values. He also promoted African art on the international stage, organizing exhibitions and festivals. Aimé Césaire, Martinican writer and politician, denounced colonialism in his famous discourse on colonialism and claimed pride in being black. Frantz Fanon, psychiatrist and anti-colonial activist, analyzed the psychological effects of colonization on black peoples and called for cultural decolonization. These intellectuals have influenced generations of artists.
Writing a message of peace and dignity. In the field of visual arts, artists like El Anasui, Ghana Wanjiki Mutu, create works that question African identity, collective memory, and the traumas of history. Their installations, sculptures, and paintings are exhibited in the world's greatest museums, contributing to the recognition of contemporary African art. Festivals like the Pan-African Festival of Algiers, Pana the St. Louis Jazz Festival, Senegal showcases of African artistic creation and places of meetings and exchanges. They allow artists to present their work, collaborate, and reflect together on the future of the continent. The African cultural renaissance is therefore a dynamic and constantly evolving movement, driven by artists and intellectuals who refuse to forget the past and are building a better future for Africa and its diaspora. SEP methods and tips for understanding and remembering. To better understand and remember the concepts of cultural Pan-Africanism, here are some tips. 1. Listen to African music, Afrobeat, reggae, African hip-hop, paying attention to the lyrics and rhythms. This will help you feel the emotion and the message. 2. Watch documentaries on African art, traditional dances, or cuisine. Images and sounds reinforce memory. 3. Read African tales or poems by Senghor and Césaire. Literature is an excellent way to understand culture. 4. Participate in African cultural events in your city, festivals, concerts, exhibitions. Direct experience is unforgettable. 5. Create revision cards with